The morning was still and quiet, with the first ray of sunlight creeping in through the windows. Jungkook was standing in the living room, getting ready for his mission. He was double checking everything, his gear, his bag, making sure nothing was out of place. Meanwhile, you were following him everywhere, staying close as he moved around. You couldn't help it. Your heart feels heavy every time he leaves for something dangerous like this. You have been following me like a shadow. Jungkook teased without looking up. His deep voice broke the silence, a faint smirk tugged at his lips, but his focus remained on securing his holster. Well, someone has to make sure you don't forget anything. You replied, crossing your arms as you leaned against the doorframe. He lifted his head and your eyes met, melting his heart even more. I never forget, but I like the attention. You rolled your eyes at his cocky remark, but the tension in the room was undeniable. You couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was different, more dangerous than the others. As the time to leave approached, Jungkook finally turned to you, his figure towering yet familiar. I'll be back before you know it, he said, his voice steady, but the way he studied your face betrayed his own hesitation. You nodded, stepping closer to him. You better be, I'll be waiting. Jungkook chuckled softly, closing the distance between you. His hand gently cupped your cheek, his thumb brushing lightly against your skin. Don't miss me too much, he murmured, leaning in. But just as his lips were about to meet yours, you turned your head slightly. His kiss landed awkwardly near the corner of your mouth. His movements froze and a flicker of surprise crossed his face. You avoided his gaze, pretending not to notice the awkwardness. Stay safe, okay? You said quickly, stepping back. Jungkook straightened, dropping his hands to his side. For a moment the room felt too quiet, then a mischievous glint appeared in his eyes. Oh, I see how it is, he said in a light tone but layered with meaning. What? You asked, pretending to be innocent. You're playing hard to get, he replied with a smirk, slinging his bag over his shoulder. That's fine. When I come back, I'll make sure there's no escaping next time. Your cheeks flushed, but you managed to hold his gaze. Don't be ridiculous, you mumbled. Jungkook laughed softly. He stepped closer once more, leaning in until his lips brushed against your ear. Be ready, he whispered. His voice was low but teasing. Before you could respond, he straightened and walked out of the door, leaving you standing there with a racing heart and his words echoing in your mind. As you watched him disappear down the path, you couldn't help but smile despite your earlier hesitation. Jungkook had a way of making promises that you knew he would keep, and this one you suspected would be no different. You stood by the large window watching as Jungkook's car disappeared down the long driveway. The sound of gates closing behind him echoed faintly, leaving a strange emptiness in the mansion. You sighed, brushing your fingers against the cold glass. It had been only 3 months since your wedding, a union neither of you had planned for but were bound to be by your families. An arranged marriage to a mafia boss wasn't exactly the life you imagined for yourself. At first, the idea of Jungkook had terrified you. You had heard the rumors, how ruthless he could be in his world, how he ruled with an iron fist. You thought you had married a cold, domineering man who would see you as nothing more than a duty. The first few weeks of your marriage didn't make things easier for you. Jungkook was quiet and serious, always careful in the way he did things. You were polite to him but kept a distance, too nervous to get close. You spent your days walking around the mansion quietly, trying not to bother him, and your nights wondering if you would ever feel comfortable in this new life. But over time, Jungkook started to change the way you saw him. It was in the small, thoughtful things he did, the way he pulled out your chair at the dining table, how he always made sure you had eaten, and the little ways he cared for you. He would leave a light on in the hallway because he knew you were afraid of the dark. If he noticed you curling up in your sleep, he would place an extra blanket on your side of the bed. And then there was his words, gentle and kind, breaking down the walls you had built around yourself. He was calm and caring, whether it was about a decision in the house or something as small as what to watch during dinner. He didn't sound cold or mean. Instead, he sounded like someone who wanted you to feel safe. Day by day, weeks by weeks, you realized Jungkook wasn't the scary man you thought he was. He turned out to be the sweetest person you had ever met. He gave you space when you needed it, but he was always there if you wanted someone to talk to. Slowly, you started to relax around him. You began to talk more, laugh more, and even enjoying the quiet moments you shared. But one thing still made you nervous, your shyness. Jungkook had a way of making your heart race. It was the way he looked at you, his dark eyes soft and full of care, like you were the most important person in the world. When he leaned in close, his face so near to yours, it made you feel flustered. His touch was always gentle, like he was waiting for you to make the first move, but each time you hesitated, you would look away, turn your head, or make an excuse to avoid the moment. It wasn't because you didn't like him, you just didn't know how to handle the feeling he made you feel. Now, as you stood in the quiet house, you thought about his teasing smile before he left. You had laughed and shrugged it off at the time, but now, in the silence of the mansion, you knew he was right. Jungkook had become more than just your husband. He was the one who made you feel safe, cared for, and even loved. You still had trouble showing him how you felt, but deep down, those feelings were growing stronger every day. You smiled softly to yourself as you turned away from the window. Maybe when he come back, you would try to be braver. Maybe next time you wouldn't pull away. For now, all you could do was wait for him to come back home. You came in your room because you were not feeling like doing anything. It's very strange. When Jungkook is with you, you like his company, but whenever he tries to kiss you or approach you romantically, you always avoid or make excuses. But now, when he's not around, you want to be close to him, hug him, or maybe kiss him. You looked at the empty side of the bed and brushed your hand over it. This is really complicated, but I do love you, believe me. Hugging his pillow, you closed your eyes and soon drifted to sleep. The third night after Jungkook left, the house felt very quiet. The silence seemed heavy as you went through your evening routine, trying to stay busy and not to think about him too much. But every time you walked by his study or saw the empty spot on the couch, you couldn't help but feel how much you missed him. Then, just as you were preparing for bed, you heard the familiar hum of his car pulling into the driveway. Your heart skipped a beat, and before you could stop yourself, you rushed to the window, peeking outside. There it was, Jungkook's car. He was home. A wave of excitement washed over you, but also nerves. You still hadn't figured out how to act around him, especially when he was so close. You had grown comfortable with him over the past few months, but the thought of him getting too close or kissing you still made you shy. When he stepped inside, his tired eyes immediately found yours. There was a small, knowing smile on his lips. I'm back, he said softly, closing the door behind him. Your heart fluttered, but you simply nodded, still unsure of what to say. Welcome back, glad you're back safely. He chuckled, coming towards you. Of course I have to. I know you were missing me like crazy, he said, teasing while you chuckled softly. He studied you for a moment, his gaze stayed on you like he was trying to read something in your eyes. His smile softened and he took a small step towards you. But seriously, tell me, did you miss me? He said lightly, his voice teasing, but there was something deeper there too. You hesitated, looking down at the floor, suddenly feeling self-conscious under his gaze. Yeah. Jungkook's eyes narrowed slightly, studying you intently. You still can't look me in the eye, huh? You quickly looked up at him, trying to steady yourself. It's not that, it's been a long few days. He didn't press further, but the smile on his lips didn't fade. He stepped closer and you instinctively took a small step back. The tension between you thickened. You're scared of me, aren't you? Jungkook asked in a low voice while his eyes searching for yours. You froze, unsure of how to respond. You weren't scared, not exactly, but the idea of him getting too close still made your heart race. I'm not scared, and I have no reason to be. Your voice was low, but you want to assure him that you're not scared of him. He didn't let any room for fear in your heart. Jungkook's expression softened, but his eyes held a knowing glint. You don't have to be. I'm not going to hurt you, he said gently. He paused for a moment as if letting the words sink in before continuing. I know you have been avoiding me, avoiding kisses, avoiding being close. The words made your heart flutter in your chest. It's not that, it's just. Jungkook raised a hand, his touch gentle as it brushed your cheek. It's okay, but I won't let you keep avoiding me. Before you could ask what he meant, he quickly turned and started walking towards the stairs. Wait here. He called over his shoulder, his smile still playing at the corner of his lips. Confused but curious, you stood froze in place. You had no idea what he was planning, but you couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Jungkook returned a few minutes later, his hands tucked in his pockets. He glanced at you with a mischievous glint in his eyes, and you took an instinctive step back. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you, but I know now that you're avoiding me, so I'm going to make sure I catch you. Before you could respond, he reached for the light switch and turned off the lights, leaving you in the dim glow of the hallway. Your heart began to race again. Jungkook, what are you doing? You asked, your voice came a little shaky. He chuckled softly, his voice was low but full of intent. You're not getting away this time. You could barely see him in the dark, but you could hear the certainty in his footsteps. As he moved closer without warning, you heard a quiet click. Suddenly, the hallway was illuminated by soft twinkling lights. Your eyes widened as you realized Jungkook had set up a trail of small lights leading you down the hallway like a path. You were surprised because you have no idea about it. Confused but unable to stop yourself, you took a step back. Your heart raced as you tried to make sense of what was happening, but Jungkook was already walking towards you, his presence unmistakable. Jungkook, this is a game. I'm going to make sure I get that kiss tonight, Vian. Your heart started beating so fast that you yourself can hear your heartbeat. You hesitated for a moment, unsure if you should try to run or face him, but as much as you wanted to, your feet wouldn't move. You didn't know whether it was the calmness in his tone or the way he was looking at you, but there was something magnetic about him that made it impossible to resist. Jungkook reached out, his fingers gently brushing your hand before taking it. His grip was light but firm, guiding you down the trail of lights he had set up for you. Step by step, you walked together, the space between you closing. You could feel the warmth of his touch and the steady rhythm of his breath. When you reached the center of the living room, you stopped, your heart beating wildly in your chest. There was no escape now. He stood just behind you, his presence enveloping you. You could feel his breath against your neck, sending a shiver down your spine. You have been avoiding me for too long. I'm not letting you run anymore. His breath hit your neck, sending goosebumps all over your body. The words seemed to hang in the air, and you turned around slowly, your heart thumping louder with every second. But before you could say anything, Jungkook closed the distance between you in one swift motion. His hand cupped your face gently. His touch felt warm and soothing. I know you're scared, but I'm here, Ryan. You don't have to be afraid anymore. You put your hands over his, finally ready to tell your feelings. I'm not scared of you, Jungkook. It's just every time you are near me, I can't control how fast my heart beats. You make me nervous, but not because I'm afraid of you. It's because of how you make me feel. His eyes widened slightly, but his lips parted as if he wanted to say something, but he stopped, letting you continue. I don't know how to explain it. You make me feel things I've never felt before. Like I'm the only one you see, the only one that matters. It's overwhelming sometimes, but it's also something I can't ignore anymore. Jungkook's hands on your face grew firmer, his touch grounding you, his lips curved into a gentle smile, and his voice, when he spoke, was steady and warm. You think I don't feel the same way? He asked, his thumbs brushing your cheeks tenderly. Ryan, you have no idea how much space you have taken up in my heart. You have been avoiding me, running from me, and I thought it was because you didn't want me, but now, hearing this, he leaned closer, resting his forehead lightly against yours. His breath was warm against your skin, and his voice dropped to a whisper as though the words were meant only for you. You are everything to me, Ryan, and if I make your heart race, then that's good because you do the same to me every single time. You felt tears well up in your eyes, not from sadness but from relief and joy. The walls you had carefully built around yourself crumbled under the weight of his honesty and the sincerity in his voice. I'm sorry for avoiding you. I didn't know how to handle what I was feeling, but I care about you, Jungkook, more than I can put into words. His smile widened and he let out a soft, almost disbelieving laugh as though he had been waiting to hear those words for so long. Then stop running. Stay here with me. Let me show you that you don't need to be nervous around me. His voice was playful, but his eyes were serious. Before you could respond, he tilted his head, capturing your lips in a kiss that was as gentle as it was full of promise. This time you didn't hesitate. Your hand slid from his to rest on his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath your fingers. The kiss deepened, slow and meaningful, as if he was trying to tell you everything he felt without needing words. When he finally pulled away, his eyes were alight with something new, a mixture of happiness. See, you survived, didn't you? He teased you while you laughed softly, your cheeks heating as you looked up at him. Barely. Jungkook grinned, pulling you into his arms and holding you close. Good, because I plan to make your heart race like that every day for the rest of our lives. In his embrace, with your head resting against his chest, you realized there was nothing to be afraid of anymore. You had found your place not just in his arms but in his heart. As for the first time, you allowed yourself to truly believe in the happiness that was waiting for you. Jungkook then leaned back slightly, just enough to look into your eyes. His fingers gently moved a strand of hair away from your face. His eyes were soft but focused, showing a clear determination. I don't think one kiss is enough. He teased, a smile playing at the corner of his lips. Before you could respond, he tilted your chin up with the tip of his finger, his eyes never leaving yours. There was a moment of stillness, a breathless pause, as though time itself had stopped, and then his lips found yours again. This kiss was different, deeper, more deliberate. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a promise, a declaration of all the emotions he had held inside. His hand moved to cradle the back of your head, pulling you closer while his other hand rested on your waist, steadying you. Your hands instinctively gripped the fabric of his shirt, anchoring yourself as you gave in completely. No longer hesitant, no longer unsure. The world around you faded until there was only him, his warmth, his touch, and the way he made you feel so utterly cherished. When he finally pulled away, his forehead rested against yours, and his breath mingled with yours in the quiet that followed. His smile was soft, his eyes shining with affection. You're not getting away from me anymore. I don't care how long it takes, Ryan. I'll keep stealing kisses until you stop running. You couldn't help but smile, your cheeks flushed as you looked at him. For the first time, you felt no need to hide, no urge to pull away. I don't think you'll have to steal them anymore, you said softly, surprising even yourself with your boldness. Jungkook's laughter rumbled through his chest, low and warm, as he pulled you into another embrace. He pressed a gentle kiss to your temple, his lips lingering there for a moment before he spoke again. Good, because I don't plan on stopping. In his arms, under the soft glow of the hallway lights, you felt the last traces of your fear melted away. The barriers you had built around yourself were gone, replaced by the quiet certainty that this was where you belonged.